Believe it?
I don't know, Charles.
Huh?
I don't think it'll work, Charles.
It will work.
No.
It will work. What one man can do, another can do.
You can't kill the bear, Charles. He's ahead of us all the time. It's like he's reading our minds. He's stalking us, for God's sakes. I'm gonna kill the bear.
Say it again.
I'm gonna kill the bear.
And again.
I'm gonna kill the bear!
Good. What one man can do, another can do.
What one man can do, another can do!
Welcome to Movie Boners.
Oh, hey, welcome everybody. Oh shit! I'm
the
sorry,
fuck?
man. God, oh,
You were just the worst.
I just can't believe I forgot to
You're
take
the
this stuff
absolute
down.
worst.
Oh my God. Oh, shoot. Oh, crap. I'm just like dropping everything over here. I'm sorry,
my
man.
God.
That was, man, my bad.
Unbelievable. Before we forget, because we didn't do it last week, I posted on our social media, but our draft is in full swing. We had 3 movies come out this week. Granted, we're recording on Thursday, so they're coming out today or tomorrow. And I don't have box office numbers on most of them. The funny thing to mention, though, you picked Turning Red, the Disney Plus specifically movie. I don't think it has any domestic releases in theaters.
No, it doesn't. It's straight Disney Plus stream service, but it has like a 7.6 or something like that on IMDb.
7.1 last I saw.
Oh, okay. So it
Nice
went down.
try.
It went down. It went down.
But there's $4 million of international dollars that you got, so that's good.
Dude, you've got the Batman, so I have to take whatever I can because the Batman is just destroying every projection it had. Yeah,
it's doing pretty darn good. And
I'm a fool.
I got a little extra joy this week because I no longer have the lowest rated movie. Marry Me was the lowest rated. Although I also looked back at IMDb's like day by day, what movie is the number one that day? And I was kind of right because Marry Me was the number one on Valentine's Day, but every day before and after it was Death on the Nile and Uncharted and all these other things.
Okay.
Or Dog, I think. But the main joy I had was that I no longer have the lowest rated movie. Marry Me is not the lowest rated movie at 6.1. Studio 666 fell to 5.9.
Damn it.
So now our overall average ratings, you are at 6.83 and I'm at 7.0.
All right.
And our box offices, I'm less than 200 million away from $1 billion, trying to live up to my team name of Billions and Boners.
You know what? My team name, win or lose, my team name will always be like proper.
Yeah, it works on all levels.
Right?
That's
See,
true.
I was thinking outside the box. I was.
This week, though, The Outfit comes out, Operation Fortune comes out, and X comes out. X already has a rating that's pretty high, actually, on IMDb. It's a 7.7. So I have high hopes that will be good.
I feel like box office numbers for all 3 of those, though, are not going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always wrong, so I'll probably still be wrong.
I'm just excited to see another Ty West movie. That's why I'm mostly interested in X, and hopefully it doesn't suck. So that should be good. And Guy Ritchie, Operation Fortune's Guy Ritchie, so that has to be good too.
I kind of need all of that to suck, even though I don't want the Guy Ritchie movie to suck, especially. But dude, I haven't seen like any advertisement for it. I think I saw one trailer like a month or so ago.
Yeah.
And that was it. I'm going to look at my Cinemark app and see if they're even going to have it this weekend.
Yeah, I haven't heard or seen anything about it either. So that's kind of unfortunate. Poor Josh Hartnett. I'm so excited to see him again, but
I know, and I was like not going to get anything.
Needs that push.
Well, I could be wrong. Let's see here. X. Yeah, neither the outfit or the new Guy Ritchie one, what a Operation Fortune. Neither of those have any opening this weekend, even though they come out this weekend.
Weird.
Bummer. Oh well.
That is a bummer, especially because that's my movie.
Well, I'm just taking comfort though that you are losing 2 big DC films this year.
Yeah.
And although, okay, can we just take a quick sec and laugh at WB reminding themselves that they're stupid?
Yeah.
So they've released this huge, in 2022, the world needs heroes trailer. It's epic. We got to see Black Adam, Flash, Aquaman stuff. It was cool. The trailer is really cool. And it's like, it pumps you up for like, all right, DC heroes are coming. And then Warner Brothers is
specifically.
Like, yeah. And then Warner Brothers is like, oh, wait, never mind.
Yeah. That was a terrible idea, apparently. I get the impression that they're really focused on Black Adam, and they pushed Aquaman and Flash and brought forward Shazam. Seems like the Shazam Black Adam world they're focused on, I guess.
Well, I guess the director of Shazam 2 said that this release schedule actually like messes with what they were doing.
Because they were going to reference Flash and Aquaman before them.
Yeah.
That sucks.
And I guess James Wan came out and talked about Aquaman being pushed back, and he said that gives them a little more time to really hone in all the CGI effects, because obviously it's going to be a CGI heavy film.
Yeah.
I'm kind of worried that the added time is actually going to end up making the CGI look almost really bad in some scenes, where it's going to be like, man, you pushed it out this long and that's still the green screen effect that we got. I'm hoping to be wrong.
Yeah.
But
it's possible.
It's possible. The Flash, I'm like, why did you push the Flash back? Like, what, Michael Keaton coming back as Batman just wasn't good enough for you?
Yeah. Yeah. And Affleck and the whole shebang.
I know. But I'm also wondering with this Discovery merger, though.
Yeah.
Because now there's a whole bunch of stirrings in the WB DCEU going on that I'm hoping maybe Discovery head folk looked at WB and DCEU head folk and were like, you dumb. We're going to do it this way.
Yeah. It's kind of like, of course, the Restore the Snyderverse fans are latching onto it, and they're like, this is like when HBO Max said, we can take this and put out a Zack Snyder Justice League, and it won't be officially WB, but we're related and we can take it over. Yeah, people are trying to infuse hope into the Discovery merger as doing the same thing or the next thing.
I'm just staying like, let's just see what it is.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I just feel like Warner Brothers is just going to fuck it all up in the end game. So
that is a fair bet. That is generally what they do. Yes.
So, but that's all I got. I didn't watch anything new. I know right after we record this, my daughter and I are finally sitting down to watch The Adam Project. So I'm super stoked for that.
Nice.
That will be the only new thing that I see, because we're recording early because I have to work all the time, and this was my only free moment.
Yeah, I also did not watch anything new. I've been watching like TV and stuff, and preparing for new episodes, which are coming up. Yeah, but no new movies that I've never seen before, so nothing to bring up there.
Cool. Well, let's dive into this.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this episode. Our last few deep dives feel like they have been really crazy, weird movies. And so it's kind of nice to watch The Edge, which is a pretty standard classic story and movie. Nothing too crazy in it, but really enjoyable. I love The Edge.
Yeah. I know this was on our very first episode, for those that have not been with us since day one. We did our action adventure. It was our top 10. and The Edge was on your list. And every time I watch it, like now, ever since we did that first episode, every time I watch it, I think of you, and I'm like, yeah, Jake is going to be Charles. Like, Jake is Charles. Minus
Hopefully
being a billionaire.
No. Hopefully that also would be good. Let's just speak that into existence. Put it out in the
He's
universe.
going to own a plane. And I was like, and I'm pretty positive that Christy is a better wife, will always be a better wife than the wife he has in that movie. But
Let's
the
hope so. Yeah.
The survivalist mentality, the just the way to absorb the situation as it like develops, that kind of thing. I'm always like, yeah, this is Jake. Like, I tell everyone, if the zombie apocalypse ever actually happened, I'm like, I would hole up with Jake and Christy because Jake's just gonna know what to do. Like,
that's the goal. That is the goal. You got to be prepared for everything.
You do, and
I
I'm always like, yeah, Jake's got it.
I think there's something so satisfying in survival movies in general. I really like the kinds of movies where it's like one guy or one lady, whether they're in space or in the wild or in the ocean, and they're trying to survive and trying to solve problems. I find that so enjoyable. The Edge is a little different because it's still a movie about this guy trying to survive through nature. And you see a lot of nature's beauty and you see a lot of nature's brutality. And that's kind of one of my favorite things. But also there's the added element of needing to survive humans. Like there's an element of human relationship and human betrayal, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
The Edge is one of my favorite movies because it's so interesting and also kind of different on so many levels. Like one of the main things that stands out is you don't see a lot of movies, except for Batman, I guess, where a billionaire is a good guy. Like the rich guy is not a piece of shit, or he's not seen as like bad. And also, not only is he a good guy and he continues to be good and make good choices and be nice and kind, but he also, you see kind of his perspective where he's kind of defensive against, he has to question relationships that are brought to him up into and including his wife, where he doesn't always know their true motivations. Do they actually like him? Do they actually want to know him? Are they actually his friends? Or are they just interested in his money and they're hitting him up for an investment opportunity, or they want to steal it from him or whatever? He's always on the defense. So I think that's an interesting element of the story that you don't see a lot.
Yeah, I'm totally there with you. One of the notes that I wrote down while watching it was like, I really think Anthony Hopkins' performance in this movie is very underrated. He does such an incredible job of being subtle, playing like this character who understands with this huge, rich lifestyle. Yeah, you do have to be cautious with relationships. You have to be cautious with all of this. But he plays it where you can tell he's always wanting to have that connection with someone. He's always longing for it and still like kind of giving everyone the benefit of the doubt right out of the gate instead of being like standoffish or whatever. He's never really standoffish at all. He just sits down with people and he wants to hear what they have to say. He kind of goes in his own mind a lot, but the way he plays this role is so great. And there's one scene in particular, it's one of my favorite scenes, and we'll bring it up in a little bit or in a little while, that I was just like, right there, that's the scene that just, this feels so natural. It feels so just like you feel defeated with Hopkins. You feel like this poor guy. And these days, feeling sorry for the ultra billionaire plane owner. By the way, I keep saying plane owner because that's like a point in the story that gets brought
Yeah.
to him several times.
Never feel sorry for someone that owns a plane.
Right. But you feel sorry for his character of Charles, because, I
Yeah.
mean, I know everyone has that dream when they're younger or even young adulthood, and then it becomes kind of like a joke, a kind of snide dream, if you will, of like, oh, I wish I was a millionaire. I wish I could be rich. Hopkins plays the rich guy role in such a different light that I guess we're not used to seeing, where it's very like, oh, he's a broken old guy
Yeah.
who kind of like resents his money
Right.
because he has to be like, he has to have walls and like space between everyone around him, which would suck. That'd be, man, what a lonely fucking life.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. You can't ever really get too invested, even in your marriage, because you're questioning that. When he says never feels like sorry for someone that owns a plane, that's kind of makes you like him even more, because he's self-aware. He
Yeah.
knows that he doesn't have it that bad overall, and so he doesn't play the victim, I guess, and that makes it even more endearing.
Yeah. But I love this movie. I still think it's a pretty intense film. Even when you have seen it hundreds of times and you're watching,
Yeah.
there's still plenty of scenes in this movie where it's like, that's kind of this is intense. How would I
Yeah.
react if like my plane crashed out in Alaska wilderness? First off, I probably wouldn't do very well, honestly.
Yeah.
I would probably go into like an anger, screaming rage that would attract the bears to kill me.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, including myself, like to imagine that we would do good, that it would be hard, but it would be fulfilling and enjoyable. As soon as it actually happened, I know it would suck and just be the worst thing ever, and probably wouldn't survive. But you like the fantasy that you could
Yeah.
do it and it would be really fun and exciting. When I was a kid, my favorite like book was a book called Hatchet, and it's like a young adult story about this kid whose parents got divorced, and he, on the way to visiting his dad, probably in Alaska or Canada or something, crashes and has to survive in the wilderness with just a hatchet, and it's so cool.
That
For
was
a
like
young adult book, it was like the best.
that was like required reading for my class when I was in 7th grade. I think we had to read
Mm.
that book. It was 6th or 7th. Maybe it was. Oh yeah, maybe it was 6th grade, because we had to read Hatchet, we had to read The Giver, and we had to read Wrinkle in Time, I think it was.
Yeah.
But I remember Hatchet, and I remember being like, this is kind of crazy. And yeah, you have that fantasy of like, I would do so great. Reality is, we make fun of characters in so many movies and situations where you're like, why would you do that? You idiot, don't do that.
Yeah.
The reality is, if you're put in a high stress situation,
Mhm.
you're not going to think logically most of the time, which means you're going to do something really fucking stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons that I think I like Anthony Hopkins' character, Charles, in this movie. And he says it later on when he's having the conversation where he's like, I just am building like a flow chart of decisions in my mind. I'm not getting emotionally invested. I generally know what I should do, what I shouldn't do. And it's largely because he is so not experienced, but learned. Like, he has read so much. He doesn't have any practical experience in the woods, but he has theoretical experience where he just has read so many books and survival guides, and he's given a survival guide that he's just been poring over. So he knows some things and kind of feels like he knows what to do, until he makes a mistake, and then he actually starts to like go down that path and has to get pulled out of
Right.
it, which I love.
And he has one there's a line in this movie that just, it's one of those lines that just hits me every time I watch it. And every time I watch this and they say it, I'm always like, shit. Like, okay, I need to learn the lesson from this. And I go on like this. I'm terrible at this. This is just human nature. I think we all, well, I shouldn't generalize, but I think people have a tendency to do this where we get that like surge of, okay, I need to do something. I need to get off my ass, or I need to like not die of shame.
Yeah.
And we live that for a little bit, and then we just fall right into the same rut. And every time I watch this movie, it's like a reminder of like, oh, you're back in that rut. I'm like, fuck you,
Yeah.
man, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. The whole theme of how most people, when they are lost in the woods, don't die to the wilderness, they end up dying from shame, is probably my favorite part as well. It's the one that sticks to me, and yeah, it reminds me constantly not to dwell on the past, not to dwell on my mistakes, things I should have done or could have done, just to think about now, move forward,
Yeah.
think about what I can do to survive or to succeed now.
it's like, it's one of the hardest lessons I think people have. And The Edge is not the only movie with this whole idea of like dying of shame. One of my all-time favorites, which is Castaway, another survivalist film,
Yeah.
makes very similar points that you're supposed to like take away from, to be like, okay,
Mhm.
I need to, it's time. I'm at this crossroads. It's time to make the right choice. It's time to make a different choice, if you will.
Yeah.
And I always feel inspired. And then I'm like, yeah, okay, now I'm lazy again. It's fucking, being a human is stressful, man.
Yeah. The inconsistency is what kills me. It's like, if we could just stay on a path for enough time, it would become like a habit.
We would
but
probably be very successful. We'd probably be doing decent.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like, I constantly think discipline is like the one thing that separates success and unsuccess. And that's one of the hardest things to achieve, is just consistency and discipline.
Especially when you hit your 30s, kids.
Yeah.
You just become kind of like cynical. You become desensitized. You just kind of like,
Yeah.
And I
You get
almost,
past a certain point and you're like, it is what it is.
yeah. And I almost blame like TV sitcoms from 80s and 90s where they set up this whole, when you're in your 30s, by that time in your 30s, you should be successful. You should have all this stuff, because every character is about 30 years old.
Yeah.
And then in reality, we all hit our 30s and we're like, I'm not doing anything. Like,
Yeah.
damn you,
Yeah.
TV and entertainment business.
Yeah. It's almost like it's not real.
It's almost, yeah. But you know what I mean.
I do.
It's like,
I do. It's the kind of thing that's
goddamn.
motivational.
Yeah. One of these days we'll get real good at it. But yeah, The Edge, like, I love how the movie kind of like kicks off with him opening his gifts on the plane.
Mhm.
It almost feels like that's kind of where his character has been, or kind of been conditioned to, where like celebrating a birthday isn't really the thing anymore. He's just gonna like, well, I have a moment, I guess I'll open these couple gifts. I
Yeah.
love that the survival guide that he gets is like the one gift that he really focuses on, because it's not the super fancy expensive watch. It's not anyone really
Mhm.
trying to get anything out of him. It's like this cheap little hardback pocketbook almost.
Yeah.
And he just immediately like, oh.
Yeah. It seems to be given to him from his secretary or someone that he works for, or works for him, I mean. And yeah, I like that he is interested in that. I like his character overall, that he's just interested in absorbing information, and especially this kind of information. It's really cool. But for him to like be on the plane and open those and not really be around everybody, yeah, you're totally right. He's just kind of not even celebrating. He's just kind of opening them up because he has time while he's flying to Alaska. And it's the one of the interesting things about the movie is that you never really know what he does. You never know why he's rich. You never know why he's a billionaire. You just assume, like they say he is, and you believe he is because of the way that he is, kind of, I think.
Yeah, he has a very he's very successful. He's got that demeanor that, like, when you see him on the screen, even if you didn't know his character was a billionaire right from the get-go,
yeah,
you just kind of get that sense immediately, like, yeah, he's rich. Like, this guy's rich. I always feel bad for him, though. So I guess we should say, if you haven't watched The Edge, stop it, go watch it.
Yeah.
But if you're not watching it yet, but you should go watch it. So it's about this billionaire goes to this like remote cabin. Well, it's not really like a cabin. It's like a resort almost. Well, not even a full resort. What would you call
Yeah.
it? Like,
I would say it's a cabin. It's a pretty big house, but it's one guy's house that he's built on a lake in Alaska.
yeah.
And he's essentially let Anthony Hopkins, who's a billionaire, he's just kind of come along for the ride. It seems like his wife she's a supermodel, so that's another reason why you assume that he of course he's rich. But Elle Macpherson is his wife. She plays Mickey, and she and her photographer, played by Alec Baldwin, Robert, they fly up to Alaska for a photo shoot, and the husband, Anthony Hopkins, as Charles, just kind of tags along because he is free or is taking a vacation or whatever.
And they he tags along for this photo shoot. It just happens to also be his birthday. But I always feel bad for him. It's his birthday. And like they try to play a prank on him. He doesn't really get a birthday celebration. It's like, no, we're just here for the photo shoot. Yours is we'll just conveniently do it all at one shot, which I get. I mean, if you can plan and do several things at once, being efficient is cool, but sometimes give the older guy a break and like celebrate his birthday. But yeah, so while they're away, Charles, Bob, and oh man, I forget the other guy's name, the other character, but it's Harold Perrineau, who Lost fans will recognize. Steven.
Yeah.
The three of them get in a plane crash and have to survive the wilderness in Alaska.
Yeah.
And that's what the movie's about.
It's really
I
cool.
always feel bad for.
Definitely go watch it before you finish the episode because we're going to talk all about it.
Yeah, we're going to spoil it all. But that's what we do on these deep dives. I feel like people should know that by now, but we still got to say it.
Yeah. And it's not really the kind of movie you can spoil. There's not really any twist or anything, but it's still worth experiencing before we talk about all of the like meaning that we take from it and the themes and story and characters and why it's so great. So then you'll know what we're talking about.
It really is great. And if people didn't know, and I learned this from listening to the podcast, Jenna Fisher, who played Pam on The Office, this is one of her all-time favorite movies. There was a whole episode where she talked about this movie at a decent length. Like she went on for a while about this, and I was like, hey, Pam and I have something in common. We both love this movie.
I knew she was cool for some reason. This must be it.
This must be the one.
Is that why you're wearing a Dunder Mifflin shirt?
No, I just happened to grab a shirt.
It's a funny coincidence.
It is, but yeah, it was just like, I haven't worn my Dunder shirt for a while. I'm going to wear that today. And then
that's funny.
I thought so.
So one of the movie sets up from the very beginning. That's kind of the thing we were talking about before, where they get off the plane in Alaska and the mechanic is talking to him and he's like, oh, that thing's a beauty. I'd love to get my hands on that. And Charles looks back and sees his wife, just a supermodel kind of posing. Obviously it's Elle Macpherson. And he's like, what? How dare you? And he's like, I'm talking about your plane. You have like a multi-$1,000 plane. And he's like, oh, yeah. So you can tell he's kind of defensive already of just like, this is constant for him. People coveting his wife or coveting his life and his money and his house and his cars and all the stuff that he has. And so he's just on defense, which is not a great way to live, honestly.
Yeah, it's pretty shitty if you ask me.
Yeah.
It's fun. Like, so Alec Baldwin plays a douchebag really well. And this is one of his bigger douchebag roles. I hate his character from the get-go. And there's so many reasons why I hate this character. It's just like every line he has everything he does throughout the whole course of the film, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I just hate you. Like, you're a bad guy. Like,
Yeah.
you annoy me. You're a jackass, and not in the funny way to do like gross stunts, but like you're a bad jackass. Like,
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. I dislike him so much, but I like how he's written. I think that he's a
yeah,
well-rounded, well-motivated character. Um, and it'll come up a lot more during the episode, I think, but he seems to be kind of cliche in some ways, where he is a guy who doesn't value, like he's obviously making Charles feel like this guy is kind of his friend, or he's friendly towards him, but also Charles is on guard against him, that he is jealous of what Charles has, that he thinks his wife's attractive, or he wants his money or something like that, and so he's always on guard against it. And the way it's written and the way Alec Baldwin plays Robert, I love so much, because he's he's the kind of guy that I've like seen a lot, and like he gives Charles a knife, so he knows that Charles would find it cool, but he doesn't have his own knife, like when they end up getting crashed. So he doesn't think it's useful. He just thinks it's a cool thing that Charles would like. And
right.
the way he talks to like Steven or any other character, he like seems like he wants to be macho, but also isn't really capable of anything. And he's, over the course of the movie, he is the villain, basically. Like the survival against nature is a big part of the movie, and the fight against the bear is a big part of the movie, but it's not the climax, in my opinion. The climax is their conflict between each other as
Yeah.
they're stranded together. So I love how the movie sets that up from the very beginning, that their
Well, and
relationship is friendly but tense at the same time.
yeah, you can tell immediately, like both are just kind of tolerating each other because they
Mhm.
like have to. Um, I also, as much as I hate the character, and I got to give Alec Baldwin props on why I hate his character so much, because he does do a really good job playing this character in this sense.
Mhm.
But you also, and I don't feel sorry for the character at all in this, but he strikes me as like, of all the characters in this film, he's the most insecure, and he takes that insecurity out on everyone and everything around him. He just seems to
Yeah.
like, it's a whole defense mechanism for him. He's a royal douchebag in this
Yeah.
movie, but Baldwin
Yeah.
plays that really well.
He
Uh,
makes a lot of like jokes where he will like raise his voice and do like a lispy, stereotypical gay New York accent kind of thing. And
yeah,
you feel like he's trying to make himself seem more macho by doing it. But all I think of is, you're a douchebag that lives in New York and is a photographer. Like, you're not better than any of those
like,
people.
you have a lot of issues, dude. You should probably sort some of this shit out. Uh,
Yeah.
before it's too late. Ooh. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I love how, like, I love the pacing of this movie. My only gripe about The Edge, honestly,
Hmm.
is that I wish it would have been a little bit longer. I wish we could have
Mm.
seen a little bit more of them in the wilderness, a little bit extra of the survival and their
Yeah.
conflict and all that. I would have been totally cool with seeing more of that. Mainly because, I mean, the nature is so beautiful up there. And you
Hmm.
brought it up where, like, it's true beauty, but then there's a brutality, like an unforgiving brutality that comes with the wilderness, comes with nature.
Hmm.
And the movie does a pretty good job of like reminding you of this, of like, yeah, it's so serene, it's beautiful until you're alone in it. And then it's like, how the hell does anything survive here? Like,
Yeah.
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 And I think,
That's one of my favorite things about survival movies is just that struggle against the inevitability of death and defeating it every day until you can't anymore. And
Yeah.
it's just crazy.
But I love the setup to it, of setup up to the crash. You know, they give you the super heavy foreshadowing, which if you don't catch on to it, like, do you watch movies at all?
Yeah.
Where they talk about hitting birds with the propellers. But I love all the stuff at the cabin. You know, he meets the old man that owns the place and cares for the place, and he strikes you immediately as like this guy who has seen some shit,
Mhm.
knows a lot, and is probably the most grounded character out of everyone. Of course, then
He's
you
got
learn
a
like,
he's got a big old scar on his face. He has a friend who's like a Native American that's up hunting bears somewhere, and he has a photograph of him. Yeah, you feel
yeah,
like he's just a grizzled, down to earth guy from Alaska that's not affected by the real superficial world.
right. Of course, you learn a harsh lesson about that a little bit later. Uh,
Yeah.
we'll get to that here in a minute, but I love the whole setup. I love how quiet Charles is and how
Hmm.
he spends the whole setup is him just, to me, really absorbing
Hmm.
these people. He's absorbing kind of how his wife acts around these people when she's there, like, to do her job. He
Hmm.
seems so uncomfortable, and I would be too.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I would have some reservations. I'd be like, maybe some conversations with the wife, just this kind of touchy, grabby
Yeah.
profession. Like, I don't know. Don't at me. I get
Boundaries.
it's a modern world, but I'm all for boundaries. It's
Yeah.
okay for both
Well,
parties.
and
Uh,
especially what you learn later that it should have been obvious to him that there
yeah.
weren't boundaries, and that was part of the problem.
And I love his absorption of everything.
Mhm.
And you kind of take it as like he's really, to me, his whole tagging along, especially by the end of the movie, even before the end of the film, to me, he's really kind of tagged along mainly to decide, do I even want to be a part of any of this anymore? Like,
Yeah.
does any of this really mean anything? And if it doesn't, can I step? I mean, if you're a billionaire, you can step away
Right.
and be fine. If you lose billions of dollars after retirement, what
Mhm.
did you do with your money?
Right.
Like,
Yeah, they have an interesting conversation as they go through all the survival stuff, and it's just it's such a short conversation, but in the middle of the movie, it comes up, and it seems like he does want to start his life over. That he's interested in not pursuing what he was pursuing, whatever his job
Mhm.
was, whatever all of his businesses and investments and all this stuff were. Just let it go, and he found meaning in the wilderness and kind of returning to nature in a way, and that
Yeah,
it's fulfilling in a way that the real world never was. So that's definitely very interesting.
yeah. I love. I always feel so bad for him at the birthday celebration where they play
Yeah.
the prank on him with the bear, and uh, it's like the quick, "Hey, happy birthday, ha ha ha!" Next day, all right, photo shoot. Uh,
Right.
but I love Anthony Hopkins in general, and I said it earlier, but watching him move through this whole film, the way he is, like, he kind of stays in the background, but obviously he's pretty forefront for a lot of it.
Hmm.
But he always seems like he's just distanced, and he's just like calculating everything around him, but not in a standoffish way. He's calculating it in a way that, you know, how do I make this work? Do I want to make any of this work? What am I even doing with this stuff? You can almost see him calculating, like, if I left now, how well would I be off? You know, what would I lose? What are the pros and cons? You can really get all of that just in watching him and his interactions with all of these people at the cabin.
Yeah.
Which I love this performance so much. And I was like, watching it this week, I got giddy. like
Yeah.
watching him in this. And I really like, I love Hopkins. Not just, I know everyone immediately jumps to Hannibal Lecter. I'm one of them
Mhm.
that's one of his best roles. I actually think he's had a couple roles that are even better, but they don't get the recognition they deserve. And
Yeah.
this is borderline one of them to me because of how quiet he is.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot for a big name actor to be in a quiet role,
Yeah.
especially when you're the like top name on the bill.
Right. He does a lot of like very subtle things with his face or body or whatever, or just quietness, like when he's not saying something that's even more impactful than when he does. The Edge is a great example of that. I think he does a similar thing in Westworld, at least the first season of Westworld, where he's in that. And it's a lot, reminds me a lot of this. That's a
Yeah.
good example. But I like how he is quiet. He's also like pretty humble. He is
Mhm.
someone who's extremely successful and extremely knowledgeable, but he never claims to be anything, and he never brags about it. Other people brag for him. His wife is like, you can ask him anything, he knows everything, he's the most knowledgeable wise man on the planet. And he's like, I don't claim to be that. He
Right.
proves it, but like through everything that he does, but he never like tries to get any like benefits or acclaim from it, which is really
Mhm.
cool. It makes you like him more.
It does. Well, and I think him playing that character and the way the character was written, all that, the humility of him really comes through, and you can see him trying to make human connections. So he doesn't, you get the sense like he's never held
Mhm.
his riches, his success, the trophy wife
Right.
over anyone's head, because he spends, I mean, especially with the older guy who's his generation,
Yeah.
he spends a decent amount of time trying to connect to this guy, and he feels like, oh, I'm finally connecting. You can kind of get the sense that he's
Mhm.
like, I think I can drop some walls. I could really just be this quiet old man
Yeah,
with
and
this other.
they have like a shared interest where he likes the outdoors and survival. He's reading the survival book. Here's a guy that does it constantly. He lives in a
Yeah.
cabin in Alaska and goes hunting, and so they have similar interests. And then yeah, when they sit down and actually like he gets asked about this investment opportunity, this old guy springs an investment opportunity on him, just like trying to get millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars out of him. And he's like, oh, I thought we were just being nice to each other, I didn't know you wanted something. And he just
Yeah.
walks away.
Which I love that he just walks away.
Yeah.
But oh my God. When you watch this movie and the old man drops the like, hey, I have this whole idea for this like getaway resort. I just need
Yeah.
you to invest in it. The moment he drops that, even you as the viewer, you feel such a heavy disappointment and such
Yeah.
a like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Like,
You're very
but you watch,
disappointed.
this is a scene I was alluding to earlier of like, you watch Hopkins in this scene and everything he does with his face, his body language, the way he plays, such betrayal. I
Yeah.
almost feel like he's more hurt with this betrayal
Mhm.
than the one about his wife. Like
Yeah.
that one he almost expects. This one felt like it just hit a little deeper because
Yeah.
it's the
And
first
it
time he's
came
really
out
trying
of
to
the
make a
blue.
connection.
It's like a bomb gets dropped on him just out of the blue.
Yeah. Oh my God. I feel like if there was one scene where you just feel so bad for Charles, it's this scene because you're like this poor fucking old dude who
Yeah.
just wants a friend, like an actual friend.
Yeah.
Can't even get that in the North Woods of Alaska, like in a remote spot.
Right.
Oh man, watch that scene.
Yeah, it's the I think friendship and relationship is a whole big thing about this movie where he wants that relationship. He's looking for it in this older guy. He looks for it in his wife, obviously, and he kind of expects it. He's in love with his wife, but he, I think, is noticing the hints along the way that there may
Yeah.
be something off there. Um, Even though he has these issues with Robert, and he still wants relationship or friendship with him, or is at least benefiting from the little bit he can get out of him. And it's such an interesting story, I think, because he knows exactly what everybody's motivations are. Like but he still hopes against what they could be. Like even at the very worst of them, when they are trying to kill him, for example, he still hopes, he still chooses to not like let them die. He still chooses to like try to be their friend. And so I think it's not a weakness, but it is a part of him that is unfulfilled, I guess, is that relationship, that he wants a friendship, he wants something real. And there's interesting points or hints, I guess, at the beginning, right after the one we were talking about with the old guy. That's when they have, I think, the party for him, and they give him a little surprise party, and that's kind of sweet that they acknowledge him in that way and give him some gifts. And one of the ones is Robert gives him a knife, and then the old guy, the trapper guy, I don't even remember his name, but he tells him you have to give him a coin because he gave you a knife. And I was like, and I'd never heard of this tradition, but apparently it's a long-standing tradition that it's bad luck to give someone a knife because you're essentially giving away your power, and that knife severs the bond between the giver and the receiver. Like that friendship is kind of broken by that knife. But if you give the person giving you that knife a coin, you're essentially buying it from them. It's not a free gift. It's something that you have paid for. So that stops the cutting of the relationship or whatever. And they're not giving away their power for free.
Yeah, I had never heard of that kind of tradition either. I didn't deep dive into it. The way I guess perceived it or whatever was just like there are so many superstitions, old timely traditions that we don't practice these days because we live in a time where like traditions are like dumb, which is like as dumb as you can get. If you reject your traditions, you're really fucking up your future. But that's just me. But
it's shocking to me how many traditions are actually valuable, and then as soon as you reject them and stop doing them, then you'll have to learn the hard way. Oh, maybe that's why that was a good idea.
Dude, when you kill a tradition, there's always consequences. And I've noticed this like in my personal life, I've noticed it with people around me and just society in general. When you start killing off traditions because you think they don't matter anymore, there are like actual consequences that follow. It's kind of crazy. And that's not superstition. This is like, we get to watch it every day outside our windows. I'm not going on a rant, folks. I'm sorry. Traditions are important. And this kind of tradition you feel is super old. And especially in a remote place like Alaska, which Alaska could end up being the most populated state in the whole world. And I think anyone outside of Alaska would still view that place as remote. And like nothing.
It's the final frontier still.
Yeah, I think Alaska's always going to hold on to that. So when you're in that setting and you hear this old tradition, my brain immediately is just like, oh, that is old school. Like this isn't just, a few years ago. This must be in like Old West, Gold Rush, even predating that possibly days. So that was how I took it, and I just didn't deep dive on it. I kind of wish I did, but I do like that because that scene does feel important.
I think most people take it as just another example of a bunch of examples at the beginning where he knows a lot of old things. He knows old traditions, old tricks and tips that people used to do to survive or just accomplish things. He's a wealth of information, and that on its surface even is just beneficial if you don't pick up the underlying themes of the relationship stuff.
It's true. It's true. Well, and even like when he gives him the knife and you hear the tradition, the whole coin thing, like even then you feel tension, and they purposely want you to feel like it's
Yeah.
not a super hidden thing. You just immediately like, this feels like it could either blow up in both their faces or it's going to blow up in one of theirs.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Again, with that foreshadowing,
Right.
it's almost like it's a pivotal storytelling tool.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah. Foreshadowing is a big deal, especially in this movie.
It's kind of important.
But after that, the main thing that gets us into the wilderness is kind of random. It's not the most like obvious thing that they would fly up there, but they're doing the photo shoot for Elle Macpherson or Mickey, and they want like the Indian guy, the guy that is super traditional, super obviously stoic and just visually interesting, to be in their photos with them, to be a model basically. And so they try to figure out where he is, and the main guy says he's up hunting somewhere way off the grid. And so they decide to fly up there, and Robert invites Charles to come along. It'll be an adventure. It'll be so great. And and it seems to be like it'll just be like a 30-minute flight, but ends up being weeks of their lives.
But you fly into a herd of seagulls flying around, and
Yeah.
it kind of turns out bad when you're in like this tiny little prop plane. So
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's, but if you're going to be stranded in the wilderness with anybody, that Charles is the best person.
Charles is the dude. He like, and he immediately goes into like the survival mode. He immediately falls into kind of retracing everything he learned from that survival guide, from whatever else, whatever other pieces of information he's absorbed and learned through his years.
Yeah.
He immediately jumps into that.
That was
that
was like the most obvious thing to me, or the most interesting thing to me, is that when their plane crashes, Robert tries to escape. He saves himself. He just like gets out of the plane. Charles pulls out the knife that he had just gotten as a gift. He saves Stephen. He cuts off his seatbelt. He grabs a bag full of flares and stuff. Like, he's thinking constantly. And so that's what saves him. And that's what he tells everybody later on, is that you need to be thinking. If you stop thinking, that's the one thing that could save you. And so he is not only thinking, but he's also selfless. He saves Stephen instead of saving himself, which is good, which is nice. And so that's really cool. But yeah, they get out of the water and then onto the land, and they are like, we're stuck in the middle of nowhere. All we need to do is sit here and wait, and they'll come find us. And then you realize that Robert had taken the sign off the door that said they were flying up to find a guy at this one lake, because he had left a note saying that he was up at that lake, and Robert had taken the note so that whoever goes to that guy's cabin won't know what direction they went. They'll be looking in the wrong place, basically. And that's one of like several examples that you kind of get where Robert is the opposite of Charles. He's not thinking. He's actively doing things that are thoughtless, where he's like, he just thought that thing was cool probably and took it, didn't think it would matter. Now it is going to probably kill them because no one's going to be looking for him. And then he does the same thing when they get out of the water. They're cold, they're shivering, they're freezing. And Charles is like, let's get a fire. We can build it by hand. I know all these tricks. It'll be work. It'll take hard work to make fire out of sticks, but we can do it. And we can save the flares for signaling later. And Robert's like, no, fuck it. I'm going to just use a flare right now and make a fire. I'll be warm sooner, but I'm going to risk being rescued later. Like, he's just short-sighted and thoughtless. And that's just,
he's very short-sighted. And throughout the whole course of the film, he's short-sighted.
Yeah.
It's crazy. He has character development, but not in the way that makes him redeemable.
Right.
like his character development is really just exposing his insecurities, exposing his true motivations. And it's like, I like that character development, especially for him, because I like it when they don't have to try to make you feel bad for the quote unquote villain of the film.
Right.
Where they're just letting you understand, like, oh, this guy, even at his core, isn't a good dude. He probably never has been a good dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, him wasting the flare. That's one of those moments for anyone that's watched any movie ever. When he's like, yeah, fuck it, we're using the flare. You're like, oh man, that's gonna.
Yeah, it's like running upstairs when there's a killer on the first floor.
It's like,
don't do it.
It's like going for a 4th and long in football when you're in your own territory. Like, you just don't do it. That's just gonna bite you in the ass.
Yeah. It might seem like a good idea right now, but it's not going to work out for you.
But it's just, that's, the outcome's not good. There's like, I mean, obviously there's always that 1 in a million chance that it works out, but those odds aren't the kind of odds a betting man would take. So
right.
So can we just real quick, because we're about to meet the bear. Like, the bear shows up pretty quick after they crash. They have their moment on when they get out of the water, they make their fire, and they try to stay warm when they're traveling. And well, I guess before we get to the bear, Charles teaches them how to make a compass with like a needle and a leaf and a little puddle of water. This is a real tactic, but these days, now I'm no good with directions. I think anyone from our home state is actually pretty terrible with directions because
we get lazy about it and we're like, oh, the mountains are always west, and then as soon as you're at a place where they're not, it sucks.
It does. I've lived in Texas for a year now, and guess what? I have no clue what directions any fucking thing is around me. And I still find myself like, well, where are the mountains? Nope, they're not there. They're nope. So I would need this remedy, or not remedy. I would need this little tool of being able to make a compass in the wild. So it's nice that this movie teaches us that, because what he does is an actual like Boy Scout style compass. So props on the movie for doing that.
Yeah, the only like, so you're right. The everything that he does, or he tries to, one major piece of foreshadow is he tries to do the thing where you take an analog watch and you hold the sun at a certain angle, and then halfway between this time is the actual direction you need to go. He tries to do that, and he asks Robert for his watch, and Robert's like, oh no, sorry, you can't have it, it's broken, please don't look at it. And that comes back later. That's a big deal. But then he does the compass thing, and the compass thing totally works for a while. They walk for a long time and then end up right back at the fire that they just had. So they go in a circle and you're like, oh, that sucks. And he does point out that, oh, maybe my belt buckle was throwing off the magnetism of the thing. And that is also a real thing. You shouldn't hold the compass right next to your waistline if you have a belt that's, I think brass is okay, but steel is not, or something like that. It throws off the magnetism. But
my belt would not work.
The one thing that they don't do, which is a little bit frustrating if you know anything about trying to survive in the woods, is just use the sun. It's daytime. The sun always sets in one direction and rises in the other direction. So anytime it's daytime, you know where to go. And they never talk about that. So maybe it's not
they don't.
Interesting in a movie, but it is a little bit silly.
Yeah, but I almost feel like that's purposeful.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to try and give the writers some credit, because if they just did that, that's almost like figuring it out too easy, or like not having enough going against them. You have to have like pushback. It can't work out that great. Come on.
And now. I think it does subtly, that scene when they make the compass, and Robert's like, but what if that's not south? And Charles is like, it is south. It has no choice but to be south. That's just how it works. And Robert's like, but it doesn't feel south. Like, he is trusting his emotions more than his logic. And that's his whole thing, where Charles is like, he's very logical, he's very factual, he's very knowledgeable. And Robert is very emotional and just not logical. And so he's focused on that. He's like, it doesn't feel like that's right. And
I hate that line so much for a couple of reasons. Robert, or Bob, he operates solely off of like his emotions. He's not analytical at all. He's very impulsive.
Yeah.
Whereas Charles is very analytical. But him going, that just doesn't feel south. I hate that so much. One, and well, not in any particular order, but he points at a mountain and he's like, that just doesn't, no. And immediately my brain's like, why are you pointing at a mountain just because it goes up doesn't make it like just stop it. But I'm like, what a dumb thing to just say out loud. Why would you be compelled to be like, that just doesn't feel like, and then I think, oh no. Bob is like the world these days. It's like, we don't look at anything analytically. There's no logistics. We just simply go impulsively, emotionally. Ironically, I'm doing that now. I get it, folks. You don't got to point it out. But I'm just like, God damn it. Are we all a little bit of Bob?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and even to the point where, so jumping ahead a little bit, they're walking, they see the bear, like you said, the bear shows up and kind of chases them, they run away, and we'll get back to that first part. But after that, Steven is chopping wood and he cuts his leg, and so they have to like bandage him up, and Charles tells him, take these bandages and bury them. And he's like, okay. And he runs off and then returns. And you find out immediately he didn't bury him. He threw them up in a tree because he doesn't give a fuck. He'll do whatever he wants. And he doesn't want to be told what to do. And
it turns out bad. There's
draws the bear.
Yeah.
Turns out Charles had a good reason for telling him to do that.
Right.
They just didn't want to be told what to do, I guess, which I get, but still.
But like, to a point.
Yeah. Especially when you are very obviously relying on this man to get you out of the wilderness, like to save you.
Right. When he's the smartest and most rational out of the three, maybe listen to the guy. I mean, it probably wouldn't hurt as much, and you probably would find yourself in a way better situation than you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Way to fuck it up, Bob. Way to fuck it up.
But going back to the scene where they first run from the bear, it's a very exciting scene. The action is really interesting in this movie, and they're running from the bear, and they have to like lift up this log to get across a river, and that whole sequence is really exciting, especially when Charles is trying to walk across the log, and he has the flares in the bag, and he falls off and is like dangling by the bag strap, and the log itself like falls, and he almost falls in the water. That whole sequence is very exciting. But I mostly love after that, as they're hiking, and Charles is kind of upset because he lost the flares, and he's like, he starts thinking about what he could have done differently, what, like, he shouldn't have lost it. That sucks. It's not going to get him saved. And he starts going down the path that he warned about specifically, that if you focus on that and you'd stop thinking about what to do next, you'll sit down and you'll just die in the woods of shame. And even though that he knows all of this, he's still susceptible to it. And that's one of my favorite things, is that he's still a person. He's not like some robot that knows what to do and always does it right. He's just a person.
Yeah. Oh, so before we gloss over that, I mean, you just brought it up, but like, Steven ends up being the one to kind of initiate that whole conversation of like dying in the woods. And
Mhm.
Charles tells him like, you know, what like people typically do die of in the woods. And he tells him shame. And he's like, what do you mean? And he tells them everything you just said of like, they start thinking, you know,
Mhm.
what I could have done better, what I should have done differently, yada, yada. And they do sit down and just give up. And it leaves you like, it's one of those lines where he says it, and then there's that quick blip of just quiet between the three of them.
Yeah.
And then it moves on with the scene. And I love that quiet,
Yeah.
because not only are they like, well, Steven's soaking it in,
Mhm.
Bob is just kind of scoffing it off.
Yeah.
But you as a viewer are really thinking like, it's supposed to put you into, at least the way I view it, put you into this thought process of, have I already just sat down?
Mhm.
Am I just like, what should I have done? Why didn't I do this? And by our nature, I think we all do that probably daily and constantly throughout the day of like, well, shit, I should have done this. Why didn't I do that? We do those like fantasies of an alternate version of, if I had done the A, B, and C, then I would have been like at this point. I think we all fall into that, but I love that quiet because it definitely does that to me of making me like, oh shit. And we talked about that earlier at the start
Yeah.
of like, okay, have I sat down? Like,
Yeah, it's one of those things that definitely applies even outside of the woods, that just in normal life, you can get too focused on the past that you stop moving forward or making good decisions going forward. So I totally agree with you there.
And you know, I would actually say that The Edge is not like a super metaphorical film. It's pretty straightforward. It just focuses on like human nature versus everything around us, especially nature in the wilderness. But the whole idea of like people dying of shame, to me, that's probably really the biggest metaphorical scene in the whole film. The rest of it really is survival based and thinking logically, moving forward with what you actually need to do. But yeah, so that's like the one big metaphor for me in that film is like outside of the woods. That's what it means.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. So when the bear shows up and he actually does, Robert failed to throw the bandages into the tree. It drew the bear into their camp and it ravages Stephen.
Poor Stephen.
His poor guy is bleeding from his leg and now is just picked up and shaken about by Bart the Bear. And it's like The Revenant, like way before The Revenant was a thing, that he just gets completely savaged. And so the two remaining men have to just like run off because there's nothing you can do at that point.
So right there, I just want to take a quick second and pause. Bart the Bear.
Yeah.
Our generation, anyone watching movies in like from 84 or whatever on up until 2000, we grew up watching movies with Bart the Bear. Like we knew who Bart the Bear was. You saw anything with a bear on screen that wasn't like Jack Hanna's Wilderness or whatever the hell. It was like, oh, it's Bart the Bear. We knew who Bart the Bear was. We got excited to watch Bart the Bear. I was crazy. I was looking it up and I was like, I know I've seen him in a bunch. The dude was in Homeward Bound 2, 12 Monkeys, White Fang, The Great Outdoors. And a movie that I was like, how have Jake and I not ever mentioned this movie? I was blown away that neither of us have brought it up. I know I was obsessed with it as a kid and I still love it. The Bear.
I've never seen The Bear. I don't know what you're talking about.
You've never seen The Bear?
No.
Jake.
It's like an old live action Disney movie. What's The Bear about?
No, it's not Disney at all.
Oh.
The movie is about a bear cub who becomes orphaned and is kind of adopted by this male bear. And there's also these two poachers kind of trying to hunt him down and find him.
Mm.
Like, not a lot of dialogue. It is all nature based.
Mm-hmm.
It's got one super weird scene where the bear eats mushrooms and goes on a bad trip. That's okay. But the rest of the movie,
80s.
like, dude, the bear is amazing. And I was like, now I'm even more blown away that you, of all people, have never watched The Bear.
There's 5
Jake.
people in the cast, and 2 of them are bears.
Yes. Jake.
That's awesome. I will have to watch this.
Please watch The Bear.
It seems like one of the things I would have been super into as a kid. Like, I watched Milo and Otis. I watched all these Homeward Bound. I watched all these animal movies, PG animated movies from the 80s and 90s.
And what sets this one apart, like the animals, they don't talk. There's no spoken dialogue. It is all like you are watching this bear cub be an orphan. Like, and trying to make it on its own in the wilderness. It's, oh my God, this movie's so good.
It's Jake, like Bambi with bears.
But so much better than Bambi, and so much
better than Bambi.
More relevant and just a better story. And oh my God, Jake, please watch The Bear.
Okay.
Oh my God.
I'll do that right away. Oh wow, it's rated higher than Bambi. Granted, it came out 46 years later, but still.
No, like it's, oh my God, I can't believe you've never seen The Bear. Anyone else seen The Bear? Please tell me there's people out there that have watched The Bear.
Apparently Dustin loves The Bear. It's his favorite movie.
I love The Bear. I love The Bear so much. And there's one scene that I get so happy. It's so short too. Like, it's a super fast scene, but I love the shit out of this one scene. I'll tell you about it after you watch it. Because you're probably going to, when you see it, you're probably going to be like, oh yeah, that's a good scene. Like, oh my God, I can't believe you haven't seen The Bear. Anyways, Bart the Bear.
Yeah.
Legendary. He only did a handful of movies, but he's legendary.
The most famous bear actor of all time.
Seriously, he did a few documentaries where he was like the focus of it and all that, but Bart the Bear. So
he worked with Anthony Hopkins before on Legends of the Fall.
Yes, yeah. I had to give a shout out to Bart the Bear.
Yeah, he's a cool.
He was a big part of like our childhood, our generation's childhood. We, whether you realized it or not, you probably saw him in.
Yeah.
Well, if you watched Homeward Bound movies, you saw him.
Right. Absolutely.
So I was like, oh my God, it's Bart the Bear. We have to say hi to Bart the Bear. Well, not hi, but like a give a nod to him.
Yeah. Give him the respect he deserves because he's the best. Was the best, is the best.
Yes.
Never be replaced. They're going to use CGI bears from now on, so he's
probably never going to be. Like, right. And there's like, I mean, besides Lassie, who was several different dogs, actually, so that one doesn't even fully count. Bart the Bear was like the big animal actor, so there it is. Hi, Bart. We miss you, Bart.
Miss you, Bart.
So yeah, Bart mauls Steven to death. That's a good transition from a heartfelt, oh, Bart the Bear. Way to kill Steven in like your second to last film ever.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the mauling is quite brutal, and it was mostly because Bart is so huge, and there's nothing they can do to stop him. Like, obviously, he's going to do what he's going to do. This is just what nature is, and if he wants to eat a man who's bleeding, he's going to eat a man that's bleeding. And so they have to run off.
Well, and that's
the main thing.
Yeah, they got to run for survival, and it's also one of those movies though where they mention, like, I mean, Charles calls him a man-eater because he is, but like, this is a thing I remember growing up hearing about with wild animals. You hear about it even with like, I think it was more paranoia with more domestic style animals, but when animals get a taste for like human blood, they get labeled as, hey, they're probably going to be going for this more often because it's not something that's like on their menu every day. Yeah. But this was like a thing, like you heard throughout growing up of like animals getting a taste for human blood. It kind of set them on like, I don't want to say a frenzy, but there was this whole thought or belief that if they tasted human blood, that was what they were going to hunt, and they were going to continue to hunt for it. So it kind of adds like this fear. And I should have deep dived on, is this like a true thing? I'm pretty sure it is, because even when like there's an attack at a zoo or a sanctuary, like there's a big, we got to get this animal isolated out of here.
Yeah.
Probably going to put it down.
Yeah. It's not like a oops a daisy one time thing. It seems to be that they'll change, and especially out in the wild, they'll change their whole patterns of hunting and migrating and things just to be more around people. And so, yeah, it seems like it's believable, at least in this context of the story, to me, that he would stalk and follow these guys to try to like catch up to them and kill them and eat them. He is a man eater, and so it works. It's kind of like Jaws on land in a way.
Right. Which, so one of the reviews from back in the day when it came out was it's Jaws with sharks or Jaws with bears.
Yeah.
I always kind of laugh at that because I'm like, yeah, the bear is a pretty decent chunk of the story.
Yeah. But it's not like
but I never really it's not about the bear.
Yeah.
The bear just happens to be like this exaggerated extra challenge,
right?
The next obstacle of survival, because if we were all trapped in survival, you're gonna encounter predators that are territorial, that are used to being numero number one, and now you're there.
Yeah. The bear is a visual representation of something that is scary, that will kill you. It's one of a million things. It's not that interesting to see people die of dehydration or starvation or whatever. That will kill them just as much. But the bear is a natural, scary thing that's stalking them to kill them, like dehydration and hypothermia and all these other things that are trying to kill them in the woods.
And Bart the Bear was terrifying. That bear is so fucking big.
Yeah.
He's so big.
He's massive, especially at the fight at the end. I'm like, I can't believe how big you are and how close they get. Like they're toe to toe with this bear with these little sticks, and he just bats them away. And I'm like, he would demolish you like immediately if he wanted to.
That's just
there's nothing you can do to stop him.
Yeah. I don't think I would ever want to die by being mauled or eaten by a wild animal.
Yeah.
Bear, mountain lion, shark, what the fuck ever.
Yeah.
That's got to be just one of the worst ways to go.
Yeah, it's true.
Especially if it's the kind of predator that will like start to eat you while you're alive.
Right.
So like you're going to feel it up until you don't.
Yeah, it's very true. Nature is a harsh mistress, that's for sure.
Nature's a bitch.
Nature is a bitch. So after they run away from Steven, though, they hear a helicopter. They're just like kind of walking or running or whatever. And they hear a helicopter or a plane or something, and they try to run out and find it, and they fail. They don't actually end up signaling it, but the conversation in that field is one of my favorites in the whole movie, where they came so close to being rescued, and Robert is like starting to freak out and be like, we're never going to be rescued. And Charles is trying to like keep his mind right, like not get sucked into that shame, not get sucked into regret or whatever. And so he tries to distract him, and he's like, how do you make fire from ice? And he's like, stop asking me your stupid questions. I don't care about your stupid trivia. And then he starts like actually attacking him. He's talking about like how he's like rich and he's wealthy. And I can't believe like we let you be in charge of the country, all of you people, like you rich people. And he's like, well, maybe it's a good thing we did because you're so dense that we actually allow this to happen or whatever. And he's like, and Charles is keeping a straight face the whole time. He's like not letting him hurt his feelings, even though he's saying mean things about him. But he's like just trying to like get him back. Like, how do you make fire from ice? And we're gonna get through this. Don't give up, kind of thing. And their whole like conversation, and Alec Baldwin's performance in that scene where he's distraught. He's very upset. He's like breaking down. He's crying. He's giving up basically on this whole process of surviving. And so that scene always stands out to me. It's a beautiful scene in a metal. Like if you were there not surviving, it's incredible. But it's
Right.
the most
Super pretty.
most depressing thing ever if you just missed your plane.
Yeah, I really appreciate Charles in that scene. Like the whole scene, I agree with you. It's a great scene. I love Robert's huge breakdown and his word vomiting all over the place. But I really love how Charles kind of has the understanding of like, I need to let him get everything out. Some of it he's probably being very open and honest about. He probably does think I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But a lot of this is just when we as a species lose our shit, we tend to say stuff that we don't actually mean. We tend to like go into these huge emotional rants that really don't pertain to the situation at hand. You know, Bob freaks out about how could we let rich people run the country, yada, yada. What does that have to do with your ass being stuck in the wilderness? But you get it because you're like, you're just, everything's coming out, right?
Yeah. And
I like that Charles just...
We do that constantly where we need someone to blame. And that rich asshole who I don't know anything about, it's his fault. It's his fault I'm poor. It's his fault I'm stuck in the woods. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Even though the whole reason they're stuck in the wilderness was because Bob was an idiot. So, like, take some accountability, man.
Right.
But I love that Charles just lets him get this all out, stays very calm, and still just kind of like, so how do you think you do it? How do you make fire from ice? And like, I love that he just as soon as Robert like finishes vomiting, he has that quick little chuckle and just kind of where he takes a breath and he goes, okay, how do you do it?
Fine, tell me.
But you feel that, like as a person, you feel that moment because I think we all get to that point where like we've said too much, that we don't actually mean or is even relevant, and then we have that moment of like, okay, I'm lightheaded, I'm emotional, but I'm drained, and you just latch onto the like, okay, what's simple and making fire from ice, like. When Charles tells him how to do it, immediately in my head, I'm like,
of course. Oh. Yeah.
like,
it makes perfect sense.
I mean, it's not as quick and as simple as Charles makes it seem. I imagine there's a lot of trial and error before success, but as comes with all of this. But when he says it and Charles just kind of like matter-of-factly states it and then is ready to move on with the rest, you know, hey, we got to move from the spot because they're being tracked and they have to continue moving because you can't just give up. I love how it's just so like, you mold it in your hand, sunlight, and then fire. I'm like, God damn it. And then they move on. I'm like, okay, that's kind of, I say this a lot recently, and I don't know if it's just current mindset or whatever, it probably is, but I'm finding all these characters in these movies that I've watched hundreds of times, and now they're all coming out into the forefront for me as like, I need you in my life, I need you in my life, I need someone like you. And Charles in this scene is one of those people where you're like, I need that person that's able to just stay grounded when I lose it, right? Like you need that grounded person of just like, all right, let's move. Like,
who can let you freak out and not take it personally, and still they have a bigger vision than you do. They know that you're going to get to the other side of this situation or the other side of this freak out or tantrum or whatever it is, and it's going to be okay, and then they'll be fine. They'll move on from it. They won't just dwell on, oh, you said that I hated Jews and taxes, so I'm never going to be your friend again. Like, And if they like unravel with you, that's only going to make it worse. But they're instead
Right.
lifting you out of it, which is really, really good.
Yeah. So I just rewatching this movie again. I'm like, God, Charles is so. I love this character, and I love Hopkins as this character so much.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then they move on from the field. It's time to pick your ass up, and we're moving on. Which is kind of a funny thing to me. Of like, I think we're the last generation that grew up in the mentality of like, who cares if like, yeah, you got hurt,
Right.
you got to keep moving. Like, it's a scratch. You're all right.
Yeah.
Like,
which is such an important lesson, is that are you actually dying, or can you continue moving? Like, I know this sucks, but it's not going to get better just sitting here. So you got to like actually do things to move your life forward. And that's really important. The other important thing about that scene, I think, is there have been hints throughout the movie that Robert is jealous of Charles' life or his wife or his wealth or whatever. And I think Robert does a good job for the first half of the movie where he kind of plays it off. He's like, but right before they have the plane crash, Charles asks him, he's like, are you going to kill me? Are you trying to steal my wife or whatever? And so they have whole conversations along the way where he's like, no, I'm not going to kill you. Like, I'm friends with you. It would be crazy for me to kill you. You're the one who's saving me in the forest. Like, you start to believe that they are forming a bond, that they're being friends or whatever. But when they has this freak out in the field, you're like, you kind of do, maybe. At least I'm starting to wonder, do you actually think these things about him? Could you bump him off and steal his wife because you think he's just a rich, like, piece of shit?
Yeah, it's his freak out, as relatable as just the principle of that freak out is.
Yeah.
It very much brings out into the open no longer really subtleties of his insecurity, but he word vomits all these insecurities. His lashing out at him. Yeah, you as a viewer, you're like, did you invite him to kill him? Mm-hmm. Like, is this what your plan actually is? Mm-hmm. Like, and if you're in a situation to do it, are you actually gonna try?
Right.
And we'll get to that in a little while.
Yeah, but from there they just do a bunch of like hiking and climbing and stuff. One of the small interesting things is they fish for some fish. Obviously, what else are you going to fish for?
Fish for fish.
they do some fishing, and he uses his watch to like as the lure. He's like, it's gold. It's the thing the world longs for. And and they end up like trying to get fish out of the stream, and then wouldn't you know it, the bear shows up, obviously, and so they have to run from the bear again. But the bear, like, he's a smart ass bear where he blocks them from getting food. They're kind of stuck in this spot where they can't leave and continue hiking. They can't get any food, so they're just going to die there. So they decide to fight back. They decide to form a plan to actually attack the bear or hunt the bear. And they are going to use these spears and traps and things. And that whole sequence is interesting and exciting. But yeah, we kind of talked about when they're in the river and they're like toe to toe with that bear. It's insane how massive he is and how useless their little toothpicks are, basically. But when he like rears up and falls on the spear, that's like, if that didn't work and you are suddenly under that bear and
like, that's it.
Yeah, it's a last ditch effort to actually just try to survive.
It's another great way of Charles kind of showing like this full understanding of the bear obviously isn't going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, he's right here with us. Like, we're probably going to die the next night. Like, when we try to go to sleep, that's probably when the bear is coming for us. He's just waiting us out, exhausting us, because the bear just seems to chase them without actually attacking them, which in like boxing or UFC kind of stuff, like wearing your opponent out is a tactic. Letting them exert their energy is a
Mhm.
tactic. And the bear's got them running through water,
Yeah.
freezing cold water. He's exhausting them. And Charles, you get that sense of like Charles understands the bear is smart and
Yeah.
it has played its cards correctly.
Right.
And when he shows up, we're reacting emotionally. We're running away. We're doing all this stuff instead of trying to like.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a bear. So growing up in like Colorado, part of schooling was how to survive if you encounter certain animals because we
Mhm.
encountered certain animals in that state. And learning about bears was a thing. And I remember everyone being like, you can't really outrun a bear.
Yeah.
If you run downhill, turns out they can run downhill or
Yeah.
they'll just slide.
Yeah.
You can't climb a tree because bears are like master tree climbers. You can't
Right.
run up the hill because the bear can also run up the hill. And the
Yeah.
bear's got the claws to help it kind of go.
They run faster uphill than downhill because their front legs are shorter than their back legs. So downhill they go a little slower, but they'll still fucking catch you.
Yeah. And so, like, it really boiled down to we learned if you encounter a bear that wants to attack you, you either try to make yourself look bigger and like, or you curl up in a ball, play dead, and just pray.
Yeah.
I've always
Dissect
felt
your
like
neck.
that seems very, yeah, I've always been like, that seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
But
when
So
it's all
the-
you've got, I guess.
Charles and Bob are not doing any of this. They're just running. And I like that Charles kind of gets that understanding of like, we actually have to defend ourselves, kind of go on the offensive now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the bear is killing us. Like, there's no choice.
Yeah.
We either do this or we die.
And the
And Bob is like, this is a horrible idea.
yeah. Well, Bob doesn't believe that they can. That's kind of one of the interesting things as well, where he's like, this is stupid. We can't possibly do it. And Charles is like, no, these kids do it in these other like countries or tribes. Like they do it.
11-year-olds hunting lions.
Yeah.
Like,
and people have done it throughout time. They have killed bears and survived. And so he says, what one man can do, another can do. And so we are men. We are no different than anybody else. So we are capable of doing it. If we are smart, if we believe, if we think, then we can definitely do it. And I think that's I think it's telling that he believes that, because he is a successful businessman. He is a billionaire. He has achieved what other people have achieved. He's seen people with great success and he has achieved great success. So he kind of believes it. I think Robert doesn't, because he sees people like Charles who are billionaires and he has never achieved that status. He's never done it. So he doesn't really believe it's possible.
yeah.
And so
He has a lot of resentment for that kind of successful person.
yeah. And so I
Gets
think
in the way.
it's a mindset thing a lot, I think, where if you look, what you perceive around you forms who you are. And Charles perceives all of these people being successful. He has done things to make himself successful. And so now at this point in his life, when he's faced with this very serious situation, he believes that he can do it just because someone else in history has done it. And that's all it really takes. And I think that's such an interesting thing. But you're totally right about like just like Colorado and like just animals and nature and stuff. And that's one of the things that I like about this movie is their defeat of the bear is such an exciting thing, and it's such a fulfilling thing that I think that even though we're so removed from it in modern culture and we don't end up having to like hunt and fight and kill wild animals in order to survive generally, but I remember a news story from like a year or two ago where this guy was running through just a trail in Colorado and he was attacked by a mountain lion and he fought it off with his bare hands. And everybody I talked to at work, friends, they're like, that guy is so cool. Like, I wish I could do that. I wish I could have that story to tell, to say that I fought off a mountain lion with my bare hands. And just like this movie, I wish I could fight a bear and have him fall on me and live. That is such a cool story to have. I think that's just such like a carnal, ancestral connection to earth thing.
Oh, something, that guy had to have gone super primal, It wasn't just like, oh, I went to fight or flight mode. It was fight mode. Like, no, there was something primal, like you said, ancestral, like something very deep in you came out to be able to. If I got attacked by a mountain lion, I'd be fucking dead.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't run 100 meters and let alone fight it off. But I like to imagine.
You like always. But Robert has that line though of like, I've always, my whole life, I've wanted to do something that was, how does he say it? Oh my God, like insurmountable or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that is the crowning achievement story. The one thing he did that no one else is going to be able to actually claim to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that he says, like, if I just want to do that, and Bob's like, I think this counts as that moment. And you're like, yep, it does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we all want to be able to have that kind of really cool story, whether it's fighting off a mountain lion with our bare hands. And yes, folks, that actually happened. Go look it up. It was like, I want to say it was in 2020. I want to say it was like the summer of 2020.
Yeah.
And that did actually happen. Not too far away from where, well, like you guys live and where I used to. Like it was pretty close to home.
Yeah, I was local for sure.
That's part of northern Colorado, folks. So yeah, there's mountain lions, there's bears that wander into town. Shit happens.
Yeah.
But I want that kind of story. Maybe not that exact. I fought off a wild predator that was actively trying to slaughter and eat me.
Yeah.
Kind of story, because I won't survive the predator trying to slaughter and eat me. I will be dead and a meal. I don't want that. But having that kind of cool story or that moment in life where you're like, I did that. That was me. You know, that kind of like that one moment I think we all strive for, to be actually genuinely proud of ourselves. I think that's what I strive for. I think people generally want.
Yeah.
Or maybe like you, Jake, you actually do just want to go fisticuffs with a fucking bear or a mountain lion.
I sure do. That would be so cool. Like, I understand the risk, but it would, if the risk versus reward is almost enough that it would be worth it. Like that reward.
I can almost picture Christy in my mind just shaking her head and being like, this fucking guy.
Yeah. And I get when they do defeat the bear, they take a trophy from it. He like makes those necklaces out of the claws, and I'm like, absolutely.
Dude, I would take the claw. Hell yeah, I would want that claw.
It is a huge reminder of that experience and that you defeat over death. It's so cool.
But so that scene always reminds me of also a super old kind of tribal tradition that I learned about from watching the movie The Ghost in the Darkness. Obviously 2 different continents, but the idea of having that trophy, I survived this, so this is my reward. Like, it's almost like nature is okay with you having this reward. Yeah, taking the claw, hell yeah, I would want that trophy. And I would actually not feel guilty about it, because I would be in that mindset of like, nature pits us against so many obstacles and challenges. If you survive it, you should have something to show for it. Like, you almost feel nature wants you to have something to show for it.
Right.
And having a claw, dude, that'd be so badass. But again, I would be dead. And the bear or predator would have the trophy. They'd be shitting out the trophy because they would eat me and poop me out. I would be fertilizer in the woods.
Yeah. That's kind of an interesting thing, I think, that separates men from animals, or human beings from animals, that they're not sentimental. Like they don't give a fuck that they just destroyed a person or had this huge battle with these 2 guys. If he won, he would just eat them and shit them out, and it would be on to the next one after that. It's not like he but human beings are sentimental. You want to have a memory or a memento or something to remind you of this wondrous achievement that you had, which isn't a bad thing. I think it's good and interesting that it's just a human thing to do.
I think it also, let's be real, folks. Nature knows it has the upper hand on us humans at like all times. It just tolerates us. It just kind of lets us be as long as we leave it alone. But push comes to shove, us versus them. If you took away our guns, if you took away our like reliability or dependability on like technology to advance us, if you took that away, we're fucked.
Right.
So,
right.
Like,
Well, and
I feel like
that's the most interesting thing is like we are propped up. Our whole society is propped up by technology at that point. At this point, everything in my house is running on electricity or something. But this movie reminds you, I think, that even though these guys are trying to return to the original human beings, like what did they do in this situation?
Well, they're kind of forced to.
Yeah, they didn't have any food, any water, any way to make fire, any way to make any weapons. So what can you do? You can make sharp sticks, and you can use just your physical strength, which is not anywhere near the strength of a bear or any other animal. You are among the weakest animals in the woods, but you can think differently, or you are more intelligent than anything. And that is, I think, the moral of the movie at the very end, when he looks at the trapper and he says, why was the rabbit not afraid of the jaguar? Because he knew he was smarter or more clever than him.
Yeah.
And so just that, the thing between your ears is the only tool you really need. You don't need guns or whatever. You can survive if you put your mind to it.
We just have to actually utilize it and use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, them killing the bear. It's almost exhausting. The fight doesn't last for a very long time, but it's almost exhausting because when it finally ends, I like how it just immediately goes quiet. There's really no swell of music or anything. You just hear the river and like the sound of sound of nature. You hear Bob kind of like, Charles, Charles. And I love that Charles is just laying there, just kind of like, did that really? Like,
did that just happen?
And like, I'm alive? Like, he's just laying there, just letting, like, I don't want to move. I don't want to, this is okay.
Yeah.
And I also take him not being able to move because, he's got a bear laying on him. But it's his whole face of just laying there like, huh. Like, it's this awesome stunned moment, but of great achievement. It's not a bad stun. It's just like, wow, it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. The crazy thing to me is you assume that the bear fight would be like the climax of the movie, but there's still like a half hour left of it. And I'm always surprised at like how much is left. And I think it's intentional that's a big spectacle. It's so exciting, but it's overall just one piece of the movie. It's not the whole point. The point is largely our conflict with each other and our conflict with ourselves, where I think that right after that's when they have the conversation about, as they're walking through the mountains in the past, he's like, I want to like restart my whole life. Charles is saying this. He's like, even though you assume he has everything he could ever want. He's achieved so many great things. He's not fulfilled by it, even though he has it. He would rather, he's kind of learned from this experience that there's a more fulfilling way to live your life. And it's kind of like become a meme recently that I think a lot of people are realizing this, that society and the Industrial Revolution and the internet and everything about life has become so easy that it's lost some of its fulfillingness. And so I think that's kind of what Charles is feeling, is like, the meme is, I want to return to monkey. I want to return to that traditional way of life, to actually struggle and toil and farm and hunt and actually feel fulfilled at the end of the day. It's very exhausting, but very fulfilling. And so he wants to restart his life and change everything about it. And they're like, well, I don't know if that's even possible. Does anybody ever do that? But he's at least motivated to, which is the first step.
Yeah. And you buy that Charles could and probably would just be like, Right. So I'm going to like close my banking account. I'm taking my riches and, or several accounts, because I'm assuming billionaires have like 1,000 bank accounts. I don't know. I'm the farthest thing away from a fucking billionaire. So I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
All I know is from movies and TV. Huh. All right, cable guy. Go watch that movie if you didn't get that reference.
Yeah.
I'm not him. Whoa, don't worry.
I'd be worried if you were.
But anyways, like I would be worried if I was. Yeah, I really like that Charles has really hit that moment, and the timing is perfect after having such this indefinable or undefinable moment in life, or you can't duplicate that.
Yeah.
Ever.
Right.
Like that is such a unique accomplishment.
So rare.
That will never be matched. What do you do from that? And I think, like, honestly, I feel you would almost really want, okay, if I can do that, I think I can leave all this other, like, I think starting over, not starting from scratch essentially, but like simplifying after that is the way to go. And that would be the next great achievement, is living a simple life would be the next great achievement, especially with all those riches and the plane.
Yeah. Yeah. And the ultimate achievement is to live a life that you are happy with, that you're fulfilled with, that brings you joy and is what you want. And so you can live the most materialistically worldly successful life, and it's not actually a good life if it's not what you want.
Right. Yeah, it is shortly after they kill the bear that they come across the cabin.
Yeah.
It's pretty close. Like they wander, they have that conversation. And then they find the cabin that's got like the canoe. It's on a river.
Yeah.
They start seeing all these supplies.
It's got like first aid kits and a rifle, and like they feel basically rescued at that point. Like even though they're still remote, there's enough supplies and enough of a plan and a direction to get back that you can tell they're kind of feeling more relaxed. And then you start to see on Bob's face, something changing. Like he is having thoughts in his mind as he's looking at this canoe. He's looking at Charles. He's like plotting something.
And it's almost immediately, as soon as they see the canoe, that's when you really start seeing Robert trying to calculate, but he's a douchebag, so he can't actually calculate.
Yeah.
I do laugh every time when they find the cabin, though. So they go in, and you've got Charles, who's kind of like studying. He's kind of investigating and looking around like, okay, so the place is old. No one's been here for a while, but there's like supplies still here that are not out of date. So although no one's been here for a while, someone has been here. Like this is a cabin someone actually uses.
Yeah.
And I like that he's just kind of going around looking at it all. Whereas Bob almost immediately sees the gun. He starts looking at it. He sees the bottle of booze, starts drinking it. And then he finds the cigarettes and starts smoking it. And I laugh every time he lights up the cigarette. Because as someone who's done hiking, you've done hiking, the last fucking thing you want to do when you finish hiking is drink rum or whiskey, whatever it is he's drinking, and light up a cigarette. Your lungs and body are so beat at the end of a hike. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. And
I laugh every time.
Part of me, I mean, some people might say he's celebrating, that maybe that's the case, but what I take from it is exactly what you're saying, that you shouldn't do that. You're not saved. You're not rescued yet. And so what I take from it is that he hasn't learned anything. He hasn't changed. His character has not grown. He is just still that same person who is wasting the situation, who's being thoughtless, who's being careless, and being selfish, basically. And so that's, I think, an indicator of where he's at and what's about to happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah, to me it's very like, yeah, this dude is so like, how can you be this dumb
Yeah.
after you've done so much? How much do you have to go through to kind of like accept the royal bitch slap that this situation's trying to give you? First thing you do is light up a cigarette, and I'm like, man, I don't smoke. I've got pretty good lungs. Even after a decent hike, not even a huge hike,
Yeah.
a decent hike,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, let's get some air back in. You're really trying to just get your body to like settle.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you want to just inhale smoke? I mean, no
Right.
offense, smokers, but you don't do that.
Yeah. It's not
Don't
good
do
for
that.
you.
But yeah, I'm with you. If someone says he's celebrating, I'm like, no, you and I are on the same page. I'm like, the fucker hasn't learned anything.
Yeah.
He immediately goes back to the same kind of principle, same mentality he's always had, which is like, he's selfish. He doesn't really put thought to anything, and he just doesn't want to learn a lesson. And when he starts loading that gun, I'm like, this fucker,
Yeah.
this piece of shit right
Yeah.
here.
And it's very fortunate that Charles sees it coming, because right before he comes in, he's trying to make a fire and he uses the warranty card from his knife that was a gift. He's just going to make a little fire out of it, and then sees the receipt. And the receipt has not just his watch and from with the engraving from his wife and the knife from his friend, but also another watch with an engraving that says, "Thanks for all the nights," and it's from his wife Mickey to Robert. And you're like, oh no, that's
Yeah,
terrible.
you're like, oh, it's true.
Yeah.
I love how Charles confronts him.
Mhm.
I love that he's just watching him load the rifle, and he's just kind of like, hey, let me see your watch. And he's like, I told you the damn thing's busted. He's like, I just want to look at it.
Yeah.
And you see Robert knowing right there, kind of like,
He
uh-oh.
knows. Yeah.
Like, he's got to know now. And then he quotes for all the nights. And you're like, I love that so much, because it's, to me, it's such a boss move. It's such a like, he's not yelling. He's not freaking out. He's just kind of like,
I want you to know
I
that
know.
I know. Yeah.
But now it's all on the table. And Bob's like, you knew this was coming. You have no right to be with her. Which every time I watch a movie or a show, when the piece of shit that is cheating on the spouse, like with the spouse, when like the extra partner has that line, because they all say it, you don't deserve them. You have no right being with them. Every time I'm like, how big of a piece of shit do you have to be? Are you really that terrible of a human being?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no, we are. Bob would work well in the age of TikTok. Let's say that.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he's all about the like New York lifestyle, fully like very societal, I guess, lifestyle. And he's exactly that thing that you just said. And he even takes it further, and he's like, he's not just blaming Charles, but he's like, Charles, you would have died if it wasn't for me out here. I'm like, what are you talking about? No way have you ever contributed anything positive to this thing. And like he starts just like ramping up and blaming Charles for his wealth and stuff. And it's just, he's such a coward about it. Like, he walks him out of the cabin with a rifle, and he's like trying to get him to turn around because he wants to shoot him in the back instead of look him in the eyes. And it's just such a cowardly thing to do. Like, and it ultimately is his demise, where Charles actually just like takes one step forward and he falls back into the pit and the trap and gets stabbed. But it's
and Charles climbs into the pit, aims a gun at Bob, and even the first time I saw it, even then I remember thinking like, there's no way he's going to pull that trigger, because Charles isn't that guy.
Yeah. Like I want him to just walk away and just like leave him in the pit. But
leave
you're right.
him suffering in the pit.
He's even not that guy. He's the guy who he was about to be killed by this guy and still chooses to climb down and help him.
Well, and not only does he help him, but I mean, he unloads the rifle But
Yeah.
then he like the rifle is kind of a tool to help pull Bob out of there. I mean, you don't
Yeah.
really see it, but you see him unload it and like set it near Bob. You
Yeah.
imagine
You see like
Bob's going to use this as like a prop.
he uses it like a splint on his leg. You
Yeah.
kind of see it later.
But yeah, Charles is not that guy. And I kind of like this move more. It comes across as, yeah, Charles isn't that guy.
Mhm.
He's not like sadistic or like has any ultimate, whatever, but it's kind of an awesome move
Yeah.
of like, I'm going to save your ass, try to get you to survive even after we get out of here.
Mhm.
That way, now you have to live the rest of your life knowing like this kind of shit. You tried to do this shit and
Yeah.
I'm still here. Like,
It's-
I like that idea.
It's like the biggest. It's the biggest indicator that he is a good person, because you
Yep.
are going to help this person that just tried to kill you, save their life, and get them back home, and essentially forgive them. Like, he's not lording it over them, like, "Oh, I'm going to save you, and you owe me," or anything like that. He
doesn't even continue the conversation
Yeah.
about the betrayal.
He just completely forgives it. Like, let's just move on from it. And so that's a big thing. It's a big indicator that he's a good person. But it's also, I think it is also just indicating that he kind of wants that friend still. Like, it's partly a personality flaw or a weakness that he is. I think he's doing it for partially selfish reasons, but mostly selfless, but partially selfish, I think.
Yeah. And I think that's also the final straw
Yeah.
for Charles to make his decision that he's going to be walking away from everything. Because that's how I take the whole conclusion of the film, is that he is walking away.
Mhm.
Like, this is done. Everything before the wilderness, that was the end of it. As far as he know, or is whatever, he died, or at least that part of him, the
Yeah.
business mentality, this whatever, that's gone. He's done with it. He's time to move on.
Yeah.
And I think Bob's betrayal is the official nail in the coffin for that thought. It's
Mhm.
no longer like I think I could leave the whole life. No, it is, because
Yeah. And it separates him from his wife. Now his marriage is like, I don't know if it's ruined, but it's at least sullied, soiled. And so now he just feels such a detachment from everything he knows.
Yeah.
And more importantly, he feels attached or attracted to this world, the like nature and excitement and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
The
yeah,
more simple the
yeah, the simple life for sure. And so he rescues Robert. He brings him down the river in the canoe, and they're just kind of like sitting around a fire, and they have like this whole conversation about, well, Robert is obviously feeling bad. He's like, "You don't need to take care of me. I obviously am a piece of shit. I totally like screwed up." And Charles is being so nice about it. He's like, I'm doing it for the challenge. It's not about like holding it over your head or anything. But my favorite part of the movie is this part where Robert, you can tell he feels pretty ashamed of trying to
as
kill him.
he should.
He absolutely should. But
Should.
he feels ashamed of it. He tries to apologize for it. He's like, you're saving a piece of shit like me. Like, it's really not, I don't really deserve it. And so when Charles hears the helicopter and he tries to signal it and all of this exciting, they're about to be rescued. It's so exciting. When he turns around and Robert died on the thing, I honestly believe that Robert actually did die of shame. Like he had warned about, that he couldn't face going back to reality, having Charles know that this had happened, or potentially having Mickey, the girl that he liked, and Charles' wife, know that jealousy drove him to do this thing or attempt to do this thing, that he was going to kill him. So he is too ashamed. He also knows, too ashamed to go back.
Yeah, and I think the sense that I get is, even if they make it, get rescued, make it back home, make it back to like their world, their normal lifestyle or world, whatever. I don't think had Bob survived, I don't think Charles ever would have like reported the attempted murder. I don't
Yeah.
think Charles would have ever pursued anything. I think he just would have let Robert be forced to come to terms by himself.
Right.
Like whether you forgive yourself. Cause yeah, you said earlier, Charles kind of is like, all right, shit happens. I've been betrayed before. He's a businessman.
Yeah.
This is obviously another level of it, but I still feel he saw this one coming a million miles away. So it's just kind of like, the reality. I was right again.
Yeah.
All right. And I think that kind of shame would end up killing Bob in his normal world had he survived at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Further down the line, I think he would have died of shame then. But I do agree with you. I think he does legitimately die of shame and just being like, how do I face anything or anyone? Even if he ended up with Mickey, he would never be able to face her.
Yeah.
He'd never be able to look her in the eye again.
Or really enjoy that. Like you didn't earn that relationship. I mean, Charles will probably walk away from it because he knows it's not real. And so now you may end up with your dream girl, but you didn't earn that. It's not really real. And so he probably would never be happy anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Charles gets saved, and I like that he does that where he puts the like, oh yeah, we forgot to, they do ration like not just the trophy of the claws, but they use the bear skin and the bear meat to feed them and kind of create like extra layers, which I really like seeing that because that I'm like, oh, that's totally Charles telling him we need to do this and this because this is how like tons of generations survived long before anything else. This is what they actually did.
Yeah. And we're going to be
but I like that
through the mountains. We need these fur coats.
Yeah. And I like that he covers Bob with the fur as kind of like, I take it as not just covering the body like you always see in movies and TV, but it's almost like, hey, you were a part of it. It's kind of like a, what am I looking for, Jake? I just lost the word, but it's like, here's that added trophy. So you don't die like a complete piece of shit almost. Like, we did this, you accomplished this, you were a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that he does that. I might be looking too much into it. Get over it. But yeah, him going back home, it's so interesting to me because Charles still maintains a pretty subtle demeanor up until the very, 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 very last line of the film. And I love that. But I love how he like walks up and you see all the reporters, oh, Mr. Morris, which immediately any movie I watch, when I see a group of photographers doing that to like people that survive extreme situations, I'm always like, fuck off.
Yeah, that's the last
like
thing
the
they want.
last thing they need or want is a bunch of shuddering cameras and people shouting at them. Like, there is so much to process that I can't even fathom. Of people coming home, like, go away.
Yeah, exactly.
Just fuck off. And this whole idea of like, you have to give a statement right after you've been rescued. Go away. Just let me be quiet for a minute. But I love when he like sees his wife again, he's not happy. Why would you be? And you can tell she already is kind of like, uh-oh.
Like, well, I think it's so telling that she stays up at the cabin on the stairs. If this was like, if she loved him and he had just come home and this was like a real relationship, she would run down to the helicopter and meet him there as soon as he got off. But she's waiting, poised, like basically for the cameras at the top of the stairs. And I feel like that's so telling of where they're actually at.
Yeah. And I love that he hugs her. No kiss on the cheek, nothing like that, just a hug. And he gives her Bob's watch as the like, to me, it's the nail in the coffin. Because I truly believe after the events of this movie, Charles leaves her. She's left feeling like a piece of shit, but her career probably still keeps going. In fact, she probably actually only feels like a piece of shit for a short time. I bet she moves on.
Probably.
And I think Charles would live the rest of his life out like either buy that cabin or
Mhm.
find some other cabin where he just makes his life there
Yeah.
and finishes it off.
Yeah.
I think Charles goes for the quiet life.
I think so too. But you're right. I love how he gives her Robert's watch, which I think is so intentional, not just because it indicates that Robert didn't make it, obviously, but that Charles knows about the engraving on it. He knows about her.
Mhm.
There's so much. It's very purposeful of him, I think, to indicate that he knows everything that's been going on. And also, by the way, your boyfriend's dead.
Right. And this is done. So not only did you lose your boyfriend, but now you have no husband, which means you no longer have the husband's riches. And even if you
Yeah.
took his riches, he probably doesn't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
But I love that he goes up to make a statement and they ask him like, how did you feel about like you're losing your friends or whatever? I forget what they actually ask him.
Well, they talk about like,
but it's
they keep asking like how they died, like how they.
Oh
died.
yeah. How'd your friends die? And I'm like, what a horrible question to ask.
Yeah.
But I love that this is the first time that you see Charles kind of get emotional, and it's so fast because it's the very last shot of the film. But he tries to say, "My friends died saving my life," and right as he's saying "saving my life," he like his voice cracks, his eyes well up, and then it's just quiet for like that millisecond, and that's credits.
Yeah.
But I love how
he says that too, but it isn't true at all. So it's just another act of kindness that he offers up for them.
Yeah. But I like
they get to live on as like heroes, even though they weren't.
See, I kind of take it more as when he says they saved his life, I think it could be an act of kindness out of that for them or whatever. But I also just sticking with the he's made his choice to leave this life. I feel like that's him saying he was kind of dead in that life. Like there was no good. It wasn't happy. It wasn't fulfilling. There was nothing for him really in that life, and they saved him because now he knows where he's going. That's how I take. His final line.
He wouldn't have gotten to where he is now without going through all that stuff. And even though they died, they kind of had to in the experience in order to get them where they are now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I still think I still feel bad for the guy. It's a super bittersweet ending to me because I'm glad Charles makes it. I'm glad that the way I perceive it or hope happens afterwards is that he does find happiness being in this quiet kind of isolated life. But they weren't his friends.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole movie, he has no friends. And that's kind of like, that's shitty.
Yeah.
Everyone should have friends, even if you're rich. But like, I feel bad for him because I'm like, they keep asking him your friends, and you're like, but they weren't.
Yeah.
Bob was an asshole who tried to kill him, and Steven was Bob's, like, he worked for Bob. Steven was just there.
Yeah, just an assistant guy. Yeah.
So I feel bad for him.
I do too. The other thing he says right before that, he like turns to I think he like saves his wife from answering questions from the media, which is nice of him to do as well, even though she's a piece of shit, but she's grieving. So it's nice of him. But he tells the media that we're all put to the test but it never comes in the form or at the point we would prefer, does it? And that I think ties into everything that we were saying before, where I would love to be tested by a bear or a mountain lion or something cool like that, but I probably never will be. But we are all put to the test in different ways. And so if you are thinking, if you're paying attention and you're focused on your own life and what you're doing, the little things or there may be small things or there may be big things, but you'll be tested somehow. And that is just as important, or it can just define you as much as some other bigger, more fancy thing. So that's a good message to take away from it too, I think.
Yeah. Life is going to throw a lot of shit your way. How we handle it, how we move through it, pass it, whatever. ultimately it's all up on our shoulders, and unfortunately we all seem to just shit the bed like crazy when we're given these tests. Some people succeed, and more props to you guys out there that do that. I think I'm always learning and failing tests or passing some. It's great fucking life, man. But The Edge is it's such a great movie. It's definitely one I wish had a wider audience. I just think it's a great film.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's intense. It's just, you feel fulfilled by the end. I love The Edge so much.
For me, it's just one of those classics. It's a great story. It's great meaning. It's so well done. It's exciting. The score is great. The writing is great. So I love it. I watch it a good amount. Probably not as much as what's her face from The Office, but a good amount.
Yeah, I don't know if
Jenna Fisher.
I probably end up watching it like once or twice a year, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
At least once a year I end up watching it.
Yeah.
Because it's a good movie. It's one of those movies, I saw it when I was younger. It came out in like 97 or 98.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those movies that just has always stuck with me. And for the most part, I mean, I've met some people that didn't care for it. You people are nuts. Your opinion's wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, how 2022 of me to say. I'm feeling ranty these days.
That I could tell. We're about to get into another rant 2 in a row.
No, I'm holding it in. But The Edge has always stuck with me. And for the most part, when I talk to people who have seen it, they agree. Like, there's just something about The Edge that clicks, and it sticks with you. And it doesn't, even the bear stuff, the bear mauling scene, hearing Steven screaming and stuff, that's brutal. You can hear it. You see like kind of an up close of the bear on top of him. But it's never too much.
Yeah.
Like, you never feel, I mean, if you compare it to The Revenant, it's intense, but it's not like you don't see his back actually being scored and ripped completely open. You don't see that.
Yeah.
But it gives you enough to point where your brain is like, oh, I'll paint this nice picture of how Steven is actually going. And then when it goes silent, you're like, ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it kind of takes the path of letting you imagine it more than actually showing it.
Yeah. But I love The Edge, man. It's so good.
Good.
It's so good.
I agree. So
I don't have any other notes, man.
I don't either. I think that wraps up The Edge for us. Next week, I'm so excited for next week's episode.
Dude, next week is becoming like such a different kind of, I don't want to call it a beast, but it's becoming something so much different than what I think we initially planned, thought it would be.
Yeah.
I'm stoked for it because it's kind of like the anti-Oscar episode.
Yeah. I just started like dabbling into it, like starting to think about preparing for it. And I got sucked into, I have almost all my notes done. I just got sucked into so many things.
Oh my God.
I'm so excited for it. So we're not doing any Oscar episodes. We don't care to watch any of the Oscar movies. So instead, we're going to talk about stunts and stunt men and stunt coordinators and movies with good stunts. And why award shows are not giving them the credit they deserve, because it's such a huge part of the movie making process.
Like, even through stunts are so wide.
Yeah.
Like, there's such an array of stunts, and even like comedy movies, family movies, there's stunt work in all of this. And I can't believe the Academy has never considered stunts as being like a category. It's stupid that it's not, because there are some stunts in these movies that I'm like, this takes so many people to plan, to execute, to shoot, to act in. Like, holy shit, it's not just the director, like CGI. Nope. It's like, I mean, you look at Nolan and Inception.
Right. Right. And where sometimes it's difficult to tell where the line between stunts and just practical effects lie, and often they go hand in hand, and often also conflict with each other or make one more dangerous than the other. So it'll be a very interesting conversation. I think we'll be
it'll be a fun
cover
one.
a lot of things in next episode.
Yeah. So that'll be the next one. I mean, if you so let us know what you think of like the Edge.
Yeah.
If you've seen it, haven't seen it, whatever. Give us your thoughts, obviously. And the next week, if you're gonna prep for next week, just watch a bunch of cool stunt work. I mean, you can go on YouTube and watch all the behind the scenes stunts of how they plan a lot of this stuff. It's nuts. And guys, I'm telling you, there are some stunts that we have seen on film that are like awesome nods to super, super black and white silent film stunt work, which has some of the most insane because they had less resources to work with. So like your life was actually on the line.
Right.
Right. But yeah, so I'm excited for the stunt episode. That should be a good one.
Yeah.
I think that's all I got.
I think so. Thank you everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.
Yep.